almost died. You have a compound fracture of the tibia in both legs, and the fibula in the right leg is fractured too. And as soon as the road's open, I'll take you to a hospital. In the meantime, you've got a lot of recovering to do. There is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your #1 fan. My name is Annie Wilkes.
I think one of my clients, Paul Sheldon, might be in some kind of trouble.
You mean Paul Sheldon, the writer? Well, everybody sure likes those misery books.
They had it at the store, Paul.
They said he checked out last Tuesday. Isn't that a little strange?
I guess it was kind of a miracle you finding me.
In a way, I was following you.
You were following me.
Oh, Paul, I've read everything of yours, but the misery novels. You must be a good man, or you could never have created such a wondrous, loving creature as Misery Chastain.
You're very kind.
The presumption must now be that Paul Sheldon is dead.
You dirty bird. How could you? Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
Misery Spirit is still alive.
I don't want her spirit! I want her! And you murdered her!
You don't think he's dead, do you?
And don't even think about anybody coming for you, because I never called them. Nobody knows you're here. And you better hope nothing happens to me. Because if I die, you die. I know you've been out. Is this what you're looking for? Eventually, you'll come to accept the idea of being here.
Annie, whatever you're thinking about doing, please don't do it. Annie, for God's...
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake.
It's for the best. God, I love you.
Hello, Paul. We meet again. Okay. Do you like my what do you call these? My sling? I'm so glad y'all can't hear my stomach from over there. It is getting real nasty bones up in that piece. Okay. Oh God, it's already been 5 minutes and I haven't been talking about nothing. Y'all, can we talk about misery? Can we talk about it? Can we talk about it? The first time I saw Misery, my mom was probably doing my hair and it probably came on the Lifetime channel. And I was young enough to not really like understand fully what was going on, but I loved every second of it. I loved every second of it. And the scene that stayed with me most was the infamous leg breaking scene. So obviously when I got older, as I got older, I kept revisiting it because honestly, back when we had cable, that shit would come on all the time. And I would always either record it or catch it when it came on. Bet y'all don't even know. Y'all don't even remember. Do y'all remember when we had to record things? DirecTV? Do y'all even remember DirecTV? Girl, times are crazy. I can't believe that came and went in my lifetime. What the fuck? Anyways, I've always just had this place for it in my heart. Come to find out, I love stalker media. I love a good stalker in the media, not in real life. That is very scary. Call the police and slap them a couple of times because bitch, you lost it. But a fictional one that cannot affect me nor you. Oh yeah, I'm on that. I'm on that. Now that I'm older in the field that I'm in and wanting to do things in film and TV, I'm able to now look at this movie with a much more critical eye, and I see now that, oh my God, this is like one of those core memory themes that probably developed into, you know, me going way deeper into that whole genre. So I wanted to break it down, and that's what I did, right? So let's go ahead. It's such a good movie. Honestly, I have to reevaluate my top 10 because I don't know why it's not in there. But of course, I had to go and get it on DVD and break it down for you guys. So we're gonna talk about Misery. We're finally gonna talk about Misery. Gagalicious Gag Attack.
Still got it.
So the first major theme I want to dive into is fandom and entitlement. Because this movie doesn't happen without those two things. I mean, when we first meet Annie, literally, she's like whispering to Paul as he's coming to in this room that he's put her in, "I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan."
You're gonna be just fine. I'll take good care of you. I'm your number one fan.
She's fucking losing it. Basically, this movie is like a meta commentary on audiences who feel ownership of art and demand endings that please them. And it's so funny to me that it was as relevant then when Misery was written as it is now, because I think that's why this book was so important to Stephen King and why it needed to be done right in his eyes. Because in this situation, he's Paul and we are Annie, right?
And when my friend Andy Scheinman, who was a partner at Castle Rock, had read Misery, and he said, "This is really a good story. You know, why don't you read it?" I read it, and we figured, well, this must have been optioned. It's a Stephen King book. It's already in paperback. And we found out it hadn't been. Nobody had wanted this book. And it was actually, that's not true. They did want it, but Stephen King didn't want to give it to them. And the reason he didn't want to give it to him is because it was a very personal book to him. It was all about himself as a writer and feeling trapped in writing a certain kind of book. And he wanted to make a story about a writer who's trying to break out of that and write something different, something other than what he's expected to write. When we approached him, he said, well, if Rob Reiner is either going to produce or direct it, he has to have his name on it as either a producer or director, I'll let him do it.
And it comes through. And it's not just in the literal sense of Paul being an author. Annie is quite literally so possessive. There's multiple times where she keeps saying, "My misery, you're not gonna kill my misery. And you need to redo this. This is better than you." And da-da-da-da. Girl, it's the juxtaposition of continuously saying that you're his number one fan, you're his number one fan. But when he does what he's always done, create and be true to his artistic vision, when it's not good enough for her, she gets visibly, not just visibly upset, but like violent.
Annie, in 1871, women often died in childbirth. But her spirit is the important thing, and Misery's spirit is still alive.
I don't want her dead! I want her! And you murdered her!
No! I didn't.
Who did?
No one. She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away? Slipped away? She didn't just slip away. You did it. 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 You murdered Mike Misery.
Eddie.
He's writing this book and everything. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, maybe this is like a metaphor for how it can feel as an artist to try and get something right, or just like trying to do what you feel is right for your art. And then when you're giving it out, the people that you're trying to give it to, they're like, oh no, we don't want that. So you need to do it the right way.
Right. But then what is the right way?
What is the right way?
If not what I think.
Right.
And then also, like, I think it calls into question, I mean, could there be a time where an artist no longer wants to produce?
Exactly.
And at what point is it really their decision? Or is this truly, like, you know what I mean? Because when you create a fandom as in-depth as what we're to assume this is for Misery, right? Like, for her, this is so ingrained in her life. Like, are you as an artist doing your audience and your fandom a disservice by removing something from their lives? So, like, do I really want to have to reread your work for the rest of my life? Like, is that fair to me as a fan when you wrote me into this?
Right. But is it fair for you for me to keep asking for something that realistically it doesn't serve you anymore? And maybe that's another thing too. If it doesn't serve you, is it going to be as good?
Is it going to be as good?
Because if your heart's not in it, if you're not 100% in the story, then it's like,
I'm going to churn out stuff like James Patterson does.
right.
No,
and then I'm going to read it and I can tell the difference,
right.
Especially if I'm a fanatic. Like,
it'll be the same story over and over and over again.
And I mean, obviously it goes to say, like, the problem's gotten so much worse now, the parasocialness of everything and outrage. And more so, what I will say is an interesting thing. How I feel about it is now it's not just artists creating, you have content creators. And when people don't like the content that you put out, what I see now is that because you're selling yourself, the discredit isn't necessarily that you don't make good content, it's that you're not a good person and you don't make good content. Which is why we have now people going back and getting the tweets from 10 years ago, which, can we just stop that at this point? Like, honestly, everyone, if you had a Twitter 10 years ago, I'm just gonna assume you're guilty until proven innocent. Sorry. And I don't care. I don't want to see all of these texts because it never gets addressed in the way that I need it to get addressed. It's always being some Notes app apology that's hastily put out, and then everyone just fucking moves on. So there's really no point to ruin my day by showing me that my fave said the N-word. Like, there's no point. There's no point, because it never ends in the way that I need it to. I find that so interesting. The thing that I can think about now is Tyler, the Creator, and everyone, you know, bringing back the Odd Future stuff, and when he was very infatuated with whiteness and possibly wanted to be white. To me, I'm not saying that the criticism isn't valid, or even Doja Cat being in those chat rooms. I'm not saying that the criticism isn't valid. I'm saying that this is only being brought to our attention now because they're doing something that you don't like. And instead of just commenting on what you don't like, you have to go and prove that this person isn't a good person, which I find very, like, I find that interesting. As if being a good person was ever a factor in supporting someone. You know what I mean? Like, there used to be such a separation between artist, art, and audience. And now they almost seem to be like one thing. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but I found it interesting how it's, you know, changed and evolved over time. The other thing I wanted to ask is, you know, obviously Annie is the main villain in this movie. Maybe it's just me, but I feel also sorry for her. Annie is very lonely. She's out there on this thing by herself. She's clearly been in mental anguish. She's clearly been in mental anguish. She's clearly been in mental anguish, Jesus, for a long time. Okay? A long time. Even when she was at that hospital. The fuck? I don't know if it's that she sees herself in misery as much as she is using this world to escape her very real life. Like, Annie hates herself. She hates herself for whatever reason, probably because she was out there killing. She hates herself, and she's almost like punishing herself, right? So when she meets Paul, it's like, oh my God, maybe all of this suffering was for a reason. Maybe me reading all of these books from back to front multiple times and immersing myself in these characters was for a reason, for this purpose. What did she call it? She called it fate at some point, or like divine timing. She's really crazy. Doesn't it all come from like a need for control? And I guess maybe she can't see how she would go about that herself. Like, she doesn't understand that she's capable of getting herself out of the situation. She's capable of not trying to kill people. Like, she doesn't have to do that. But she's crazy. She is. She's crazy and entitled. And let me tell y'all, if this movie teaches you nothing, let it teach you this. Someone who is crazy and entitled is someone you don't need to be around. I'm taking this off now.
I have to have a certain level of respect for her to just put her foot down, because I know it would have been so easy for her to return to that and continue to make money and continue to do all these things. And even now, like, she wrote that all the way in the 2000s. Even now today, Nana is still relevant. You still see people at Comic-Con dressing up like that.
And if she were to have continued even writing music or writing things that she didn't even really care for or like have passion in, y'all still would have ate it up.
So
I mean, she could have.
Right. But would it have been as good? Or would it have...
How would you have felt? Like, as an artist, your integrity is everything. And it's like, I mean, this isn't anything. This isn't art.
This isn't art.
I'm just doing things.
Yeah.
And doesn't that make everything worse? Because if I can't produce what I want to produce when I want.
Right.
And stop when I want to stop. Or pick up where I want to pick up. Or change or evolve. Without you guys trying to bring me back to where I was before.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've elevated as an individual. As a person, even though I've grown, you want to keep me back here? Yeah. Like, it would be like if we decided that we just weren't going to deal with Justin Bieber anymore because he wasn't doing teeny bopper music.
Right.
At some point, you do have to elevate. The only person who refuses to do that is Taylor Swift.
Right. Oh my God, I have to ask you about her album after we turn this off. But and then literally as you're saying that, I'm like, okay, then that like adds evidence to my metaphor theory, because if I'm gonna keep you here like Annie kept Paul in the cabin, and I'm not gonna let you grow, I'm not gonna let you go out, I'm actually gonna stunt your growth. I'm going to break your ankles, so that you're going to sit here and do what I want you to do.
You are. The other thing I think the movie did really well was like capturing how the cabin also serves as like a metaphor for the mind of, well, I want to say Stephen King, but it's like, you know, the mind of Paul. he felt at the start of the movie, we're talking to Paul about how he feels like kind of almost like trapped by the Misery series. It's the only thing he's written for so long that he doesn't even know how to write anymore. So he's like, I'm just craving something else. I need some sort of like inspiration, but he doesn't know how to go about that. And he thinks that ending the series will bring him closer to what that is. Ironically, as he finishes the book, you know, he gets caught up in the snowstorm and Annie catches him and takes him home. And now he's in this cabin. He can't move. He can't go anywhere. And eventually it gets to a point where all he can do is write. While he is constantly berated by Annie, who will not stop talking about Misery. And she knows Misery so well to the point where she's able to correct him. When he first starts the new novel, she comes in and tells him, you have to rewrite this. This is not accurate.
I'm sorry, Paul, this is all wrong.
What?
You'll have to do it over again. It's not worthy of you. Throw it all out. Except for that part of naming the gravedigger after me. You can leave that in.
I really value your criticism, but maybe we're being a little hasty here.
Paul, what you've written just isn't fair.
Not fair.
Not with my Misery. Remember, Ian did ride for Dr. Cleary at the end of the last book, but his horse fell jumping that fence, and Ian broke his shoulder and his ribs and lay all night in the ditch, and he never reached the doctor. So there couldn't have been any experimental blood transfusion that saved her life. Misery was buried in the ground at the end, Paul, so you'll have to start there.
So he's like surrounded constantly, almost like being followed by Misery herself, like by these previous works and these standards that the work has set. And he gets stuck. He does get stuck. And eventually, unfortunately, kind of, you know, Annie's responsible for this, but through just writing, he starts to kind of figure out, okay, maybe this situation that I'm in now is something that I can use in my process moving forward, which is so crazy. The other symbolism that I caught was violence as catharsis. Annie is very violent, don't get me wrong, but it's always shown as a reaction. Annie's never just going around being violent. I mean, the closest thing that we can associate with that is the newspaper clippings of, you know, all of the murders that she had committed. But if we pay attention to how she interacts with Paul, if that's how she acts now, if we take that, we can kind of infer that all the way back to her dad dying must have been a reaction to something that he said. I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm using this to get to my point. Now, we talked a little before about her not feeling controlled over her life, not being able to do the things that she really wants to do for whatever reasons that she can't do them. And so when she is expressing herself or trying to come across as a certain way and it doesn't land, she gets very angry. And I feel like it's because she hates herself, but also she's repressing a lot of things. Like, I think Annie is someone that holds everything down here. So like, when you try and tell me that the paper that I just went out and bought for you is smudging, it makes me think about the 10,000 other things that are down here. So now they're all coming out, and now I'm gonna slam the paper on your broken legs, because why would you ever say something like that to me?
Is there anything else like extremely violent that she did that you remember, even if you don't remember the reason why, but if you can remember?
I think that her going from 0 to 100 was very clear in the book. Like
it happened all the time.
If he did something that she did not like, her immediate thought was violence. She did not think to do anything else to him. It was all violence. It wasn't, I'm going to restrict your food. It's not, I'm going to torture you with like, I don't know, Chinese water torture. It was immediate, I'm going to slice your Achilles tendon. It's immediate, I'm going to club you. And she said it. Like, she would say these things to him and be like, oh yeah, and now you're going to walk funny for the rest of your life. But it'll be fine. She would do awful things to the man. She literally, that's why I was like, she didn't like him. She did not
She couldn't have.
She didn't want a husband. She did not want a husband.
On her wiki, she was divorced.
Girl, she ain't divorced. She's never had a man. There's no way she ever had a man. If she had a man, he is dead. That was the first Carol Baskin.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. But no, it was nobody's.
And you can see that again in how fast her love for the Misery series changes instantly. Every single time she cannot control the narrative, she gets upset. This is not the Misery she knows. This is not her misery, and it needs to be fixed. I mean, ultimately, all of that comes from passion and frustration, which is so crazy because it's like, girl, you didn't even write the book, but she feels so attached to something that doesn't exist that she cannot fathom a reality in which like these characters are their own, or even that they're Paul's characters. They're not. They're hers. This is her life. This is all she does. I honestly don't even think she considers her life her own. I think she lives a very passive life, and that's why she's done so good as a recluse, because I think she's living through misery. And so this is how she's able to control her life now. Because if I'm Annie and I'm Misery, and the guy who makes the Misery books, I'm keeping locked up in a basement or in a room, now this is how I get my control. Okay, so I wasn't able to speak up for myself when my husband left me. So when Misery's husband leaves her, this is how it should go. And this is how, right? Or, okay, I didn't have the best childhood growing up. So when Misery's childhood happens like this, or da-da-da, or I wasn't able to have children, which I think honestly, it's not canon or anything, but I think Annie's not able to have children. And so when Misery has children, she's, this is how it would go, and da-da-da-da. That's how she gets her control, is through the series. And that's why it's so important to her. And that's why she gets so angry and violent when things don't go a certain way, because it's like, I cannot lose control of the narrative again. I won't, actually. So you need to stop.
The biggest thing she did to Paul was break his ankles in the movie. The biggest thing she did to Paul was break his ankles. And it wasn't very clear that she was drugging him until the end. Mm-hmm. So
and
I was
also, in the book, he became addicted
to the drugs.
And at some point, he had opportunities to leave and he did not.
Oh my God.
Like, he could have, but he didn't, because realistically, like, let me not say he could have, but he didn't. But at some points, like, if he would escape from the room, He was just going to go look for drugs. He wasn't looking for nothing else. He wasn't trying to get out. He was just looking for drugs. He wanted to be medicated. Because she wasn't giving it to him as consistently at times. Like, she would take it from him because she knew.
He was a...
You like this. She's crazy.
But, I was going to ask, so, like, for the birthday cake, do you remember specifically, could you explain what happened before that for her to cut off his fingers? Do you remember?
I gotta go back and flip through my book, but I'm almost positive she realized he had gotten into something. He either got into something. Did he get into something? Or he had tried to trick her. Either way, he had done something to her. He had tried to manipulate her in some way and she clocked it. And so she cut his finger off. But I'm trying to remember what he might have got off into them drugs and she realized that he had went and got them drugs.
And she was like, you know what? I'm going to take your fingers so that you can't take nothing from me.
You need to stop this. And it was just one. She just took one. And she said it too. She said... And then he was in so much pain because she didn't give him no pain medication before she did this. He was in so much pain that he just passed out.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, yeah. He did. Girl. And then he came to.
Yeah.
He came to. She had that cupcake, her birthday cake, in that tackle.
It was his birthday or her birthday?
It wasn't anybody's birthday.
Oh my God.
It wasn't anyone's birthday. It wasn't anyone's birthday.
God, I love you.
And then you said she had an extreme, like, routine, like, regimen kind of.
Yeah, like, it seemed like she was very, like, regimented on how things went in her life, like, what she did. Like, people knew her around town as only going out into town, like, on these days, you know what I mean? So she was regimented, and also, people didn't want to be around her because she was just nasty. She was nasty and rude to people when she would go out. So she was, like, that lady that you keep a wide berth around town. So people typically didn't really deal with her, didn't really talk to her, and it wasn't uncommon for them not to see her. It wasn't uncommon. She just stayed up there, holed up in that home by herself, reading his fucking books.
Oh my God. So was there more of that, like, little things that she would notice around the house?
She could notice everything.
Wow.
Everything she could notice. She would notice if the bed, like if it looked like the sheets or the comforter was disturbed from the last time she was in here 5 minutes ago. She wanted to know what the hell he was doing.
Oh my God.
Did you get up, Paul?
Did you get up?
Did you move around? Did your back itch? So she knew everything. That's why I was like, maybe she was autistic or something because she knew everything. And she wasn't on them drugs.
She wasn't.
No. And she just lived her life like Misery. Her thought process is that Misery didn't curse, so she wasn't going to.
So let's get into really the bare back of this movie. Obsession and control. It is all about obsession and control. And I saw it most in the way that Annie's control over not only Paul's, like, physical situation, like her literally nursing him back to health, or at first, but also with his mind and his creativity. At first, maybe subconsciously, she thinks just having him here is enough because she already had the plan of keeping Paul there longer than intended. Before shit started to go south, it was very clear that the phone lines were back on and everything was fine.
And as soon as the road's open, I'll take you to a hospital. In the meantime, you've got a lot of recovering to do. And I consider it an honor that you'll do it in my home.
This is Marshal Sindel. I'm calling from New York City. I'd like to speak to the Silver Creek Chief of Police or Sheriff.
Which one of them do you want?
Whichever one's not busy.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're both not busy, Miss Sindel, since they're both me. I also happen to be president of the Policemen's Benefit Association, chairman of the Patrolmen's Retirement Fund, and if you need a good fishing guide, you could do a lot worse. Call me Buster. Everybody does. What can I do for you?
So we don't know if Annie was planning on keeping him there forever. We can infer that, but we definitely knew at that time that she definitely planned on keeping him there for longer than intended. So at first she thinks, I'll just keep him here. I'll read the Misery book. I'll be the first one to have it. I'll do all of these things. I'm his number one fan. He'll go back and let everyone know about this and da-da-da-da. And then she reads the book and she doesn't like the ending. Physical to now mental. Now she's forcing him to write this new novel. Now she's forcing him to really think and use these old Misery books as a, precipice to this new novel. Now this novel is going to be dedicated to her and her honor for nursing him back to health and all of these things. And it's like this very thin line, right, of devotion and domination. At first, even when it's just that control over his physical and the nursing, that's almost like this devotion. You can tell that there's something sinister here, but it's subtle. And like, if you're gonna give her the benefit of the doubt, you can really just be like, okay, well, she just really loves these books and she just really wants to read Paul's novel. And she really just wants to show Paul that, she's his biggest fan and that she loves and respects his work, right? But you almost have to ask yourself, if the line is here, devotion is here, domination is here, when did it cross over? Because it's never like there's a blatant line to when the control from the physical then becomes control over the mental.
And when I say forced, I do mean forced. In these clips here, she's literally going to throw lighter fluid on his bed in a like condescending way of like, if you don't burn the book, you're going to get burned. So.
Now that you've got rid of that nasty manuscript, you can go back to doing what you're great at. You're gonna write a new novel. Your greatest achievement ever. Misery's Return.
You do understand that this is not the ordinary way in which books get written. I mean, some people might actually consider this an oddball situation.
I have total confidence in your brilliance. Besides, the view will inspire you. You just inhale that. I'll be right back.
But there's never, I feel like almost devotion and domination go hand in hand. Like, I think that's the point that the movie was trying to make, of like, devotion inherently has some sort of domination. I guess you can ask the question if that is most of the case, but I'll say for right now, I don't think all devotion can be also domination. I think when you devote as much as Annie does your time and your life to a series, that's when they kind of mix together and create this perfect cocktail of murder and captivity, right? But it makes sense. If you devote as much time to something as Annie did, like basically her entire life after she lost her job at the hospital was Misery, and that was years ago. So it was like, if you give that much of yourself to something, wouldn't you feel like it is yours? Like, isn't that the domination in and of it? Like, just for an example, and I don't know if it's a good example, I don't know if I'll leave it in, but just like, I'm thinking like how she's like, my misery, my misery. When I hear the word devotion, I think of religion, I think of faith. And religion is very personal to each and every one, but it can also be almost like, I don't want to say culty, but hive mind-ish. People are always talking about my religion, my faith, my devotion to God and our personal relationship, right? My God, why have you forsaken me, right? It's like, and I don't think that these people actually think that they own Jesus, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of a religion. But it is something that's personal to them, and it is something that they do feel like they own because they spend so much time in it. Isn't that interesting to think about? And I guess I'll just pass that question on because I really haven't. I've been trying to think of an answer, but I really don't have an answer. So I guess I'll just pass the question on to y'all. Like, do you think there's a line between devotion and domination? And if so, when is it crossed? Or is it just that a little bit of devotion comes with a little bit of domination? A little bit of domination comes with devotion. You know, dominatrix don't just get up and start, you know, they take pride. It's a whole subset of people who give time and set rules and take this seriously. I wonder, what do you think? Let me know. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how through captivity, Paul was able to become a better writer. And ironically, it's because of Annie. But, you know, after he's able to get out of that situation, he finds this new zest, this new inspiration, this new will to not only just live, but like to write. And I guess that serves the long question of, does suffering create better art? I don't think suffering creates better art, but I do think suffering inherently creates art. Like, I think people who suffer can create. And I mean, that was the whole thing of this movie. Like, the whole tagline that you hear multiple times is like, Paul Sheldon used to write for a living. Now he's writing to stay alive. And at first, it's very at first, when you read that, it's very on the nose. But then when you think about the subcontext, it's also like, I think he does take that with him. And the reason why is, I feel like a lot of the time creatives, when they get blocked, or when you get blocked and you're looking to other creatives for inspiration or advice, a lot of the times they'll tell you to just start, just do it. Whatever it is, just do it. Even if it's shit, just do it. Just make it. Because you sitting there thinking about it or just not doing it is never going to give you the satisfaction that you're looking for. And I think, ironically, him having to go back, not like literally go back through the Misery books, but having Annie there as like a reference of his old work and trying to create this new thing that lives up to that standard, taught him this certain kind of discipline. Yes, she trapped him, but in that trap, he had nothing else to do but write. That's all he could do, was write and think about writing and think about what he was gonna write and think about how he was gonna write it, you know? And that is really good to do. Like, that's a really good process to have as an author. It would be nice to not have a lady with a knife at your neck all the time while you're doing that. You know, that would be ideal. But unfortunately for Paul, that's not how it worked for him. It's not how it worked for him. He had to have that knife to his neck. But yeah, I think that's really cool how Annie was the tool that got him to not only just keep writing, but becoming a better writer. And I also think, again, that kind of goes back to like the devotion and domination, because it's like, it is this kind of, it goes back to devotion and domination, but it also goes back to the fandom kind of thing, because it's give and take between an artist and an audience. You give, they take, they give, you take, right? It's mutual. Annie was able to get some sort of control from Paul through Misery. And Paul was able to get inspiration from Annie. At, like, if you break it down, take away all the extra stuff and the murder, That's the core at it. That's the basis. And it's crazy that we had to go through this entire fucking snowed in, stir crazy experience to get here. But like, isn't that how it feels? I'm trying to think from Stephen King's point of view. Like, maybe that's how it felt at the time, of like this constant kind of like push and pull and push and pull and constantly fighting with this audience. But inherently, they make you better, or they're supposed to. If it's done the right way, they can make you a better artist. I also think you can make them a better audience. It's not necessarily shown in this movie, but I think you can make art that makes people pay attention, or you can try. In this day and age, it's hard to get people to pay attention to anything. But in a perfect situation, it would still be that give and take. And it's an odd kind of, I don't know if you would call it relationship, but that's the only word that comes to my head. It's this weird kind of relationship that any artist or creative is always gonna have. The last thing I wanted to talk about is gender and power. You know, this is probably one of the first movies that I had saw at a young age where like the roles were reversed. Like it was a woman in power and a man completely at her whim. And I wondered what that reversal says about audience discomfort. I wondered if he made Annie a man, but still kept Paul as Paul, if it would have the same kind of effect. Hopefully you didn't hear my stomach growl. If it would have the same kind of effect that it does now. And I don't think it would. I think because Annie is a woman, she's able to not only move through the story the way that she does, you know, all of the subtleties and then eventually the blow-ups that we have, but I also think people are able to stand her a little bit more, if I'm being honest. I think, especially at that time, I don't think women were taken as seriously as they could have been. And so, and I mean, it was shown even through the interviews of the questions that they would ask Kathy and the questions that they would ask Rob or James. It's like, they didn't even see Kathy as not Kathy, but like Annie as like a killer. Like not even like super scary. And of course that leg breaking scene was so powerful. It stuck with people. But I also think this stands the test of time because you're able to try and look deeper into Annie and like, what is this really about? You know, instead of just being like, oh my God, scary killer, like you just killed a kill, you know? At least that's my thought. But I guess I'll pass the question on to you. There's also, again, about the power dynamic. I talked a little about the relationship between artist and audience. But also what the movie does so well is like, Paul needs Annie to survive. Annie needs Paul to validate her identity. So it's this constant back and forth that they have where it's like, it doesn't really feel like it, but the power balance, it does go back and forth because Annie is only keeping Paul here to not only validate her existence, but validate her thoughts, validate her feelings, validate her
her entire life. Like I said, she's dedicated her entire life to this series. And so who better to tell her that she's done good or that she's on the right path than the guy who started it himself?
I got you this expensive paper to type on, and I got a great deal on this 50-pound clunker on account of its missing an N. I told the sales lady N was one of the letters in my favorite writer's name.
It's two of the letters of my favorite nurse's name, Annie.
You fooler. Did I do good?
You did great. There is just one little thing.
And at the same time, Paul needs Annie alive because...
And you better hope nothing happens to me. Because if I die, you die.
It's like a whirlwind if you really think about it. Like if you sit and think about every single thing that happens in the movie, you're like, oh my God. Challengers 2.0. But like actually maybe 1.0. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about was the gender roles, because I feel like usually it's a man terrorizing a woman, but in this case it was a woman terrorizing that man. Was there anything in the book that you can remember off the top of your head like that was kind of telling in like how different it would be like if the roles were reversed, like gender roles, if the gender roles were reversed, this wouldn't have happened that way if Annie was stuck in the bed and Paul was in charge. But since Annie is, in charge of the situation looks a lot different than, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really got that vibe, but maybe I could get it from the idea that she was so violent to keep him subdued, because in real life,
she couldn't
if
really
he
do
were
much.
not, like if I read between the lines, because if he were not drugged up and addicted now, and then on top of that clobbered every single time, would he have been able to get over on me? Probably.
Right.
Probably. He probably could have gotten out of that situation.
Yeah.
And I think that also, too, that was kind of telling, too, because there came a point where, like I said, he was just more focused on the pills than he was anything else. That he really wasn't trying to leave.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't doing anything to really try. And I do think that had it been Annie who was going through that, I don't necessarily think that she would have gotten addicted to the pills and not left when she got an opportunity to. I think that as a man, he may have been weak. And this is why we're in the situation that we're in. Because
honestly, you're being fed.
If you go past the front door to get to the bathroom, because he ended up actually getting up I think in the book, he had to climb up the steps. Like with his hands to get up the steps to the bathroom to go find them pills. So he avoided the door. He couldn't get up there in his wheelchair.
Oh my God.
He had to climb.
He said, I want to get high and I want to get high now. That's
I do
so
think
crazy,
that if that were
Paul.
a woman, because I like to think in my own mind that if I were in that situation, that my first thought would be to get out, not to get high.
Yeah. I also feel like there'd probably be more sexual violence. Just in the sense of like, I don't think but I think if you're a man that's crazy enough to lock a woman up to force her to write books for you, I feel like it can get very misconstrued. It's easier for you to just be like, okay, well, I can take whatever I want. And I feel like as a man, when you want that, you want it when you want it. So what if I'm already doing this to you and you're drugged up? I'm gonna come in here when you're sleeping. I'm gonna do what I want. And now he's clobbering your ankles.
Yeah. And cutting your Achilles tendon.
But that was the other thing too. In the movie, they made her seem very strong. Back then Kathy Bates was heavier. But even like I feel like it was kind of like portrayed as like muscle, because you see her after Paul crashes take him out and literally hunch him on her shoulders, carry her through. You see him lift her up or lift him up in the bed multiple times, all of this stuff. And I feel like it was kind of like portrayed as like, oh yeah, she's a strong woman, she's capable. Even in the end, like when they're fighting for him to get out, she goes toe to toe with Paul.
In the book, she was a disgusting, frumpy. She was big for sure.
Yeah.
Like she was big, but she was disgusting. That was pretty much for him what he thought about her. She's very gross to look at, very gross in her demeanor, gross in the things that she did.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how they kind of portrayed her more like a pig, like this just awful thing. Like she's just very gross and disgusting, very strange and maniacal and nasty. Like I could just imagine her drooling constantly, or like
or just
having
sweating
something in her face, or like her breath constantly stinks and she's sweating all the time. Like I see sweat. I see a lot of sweat. I think Kathy, in my mind, Kathy was smaller than I saw her when I was reading the book. And Kathy was definitely more put together. I don't think she was.
She was definitely not gross. It never came off as she was gross. No. It definitely, the whole point to hone in was that she was just crazy. Yeah. And I think even like they wanted her to look sane at a certain point, because in the movie, you're kind of wanting to subvert the audience's expectations. So I feel like they were like, okay, well, we'll just make her look normal. Because if she looks normal, you're not going to think that she's going to all of a sudden just have these outbursts. No. But yeah, she wasn't gross at all.
She was very telling. Like it was very telling in the book that she was just gross. Like that's why like the finger candle didn't shock me by way of why, like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. It was just like, why did you do that? Like, that's so disgusting, Annie. Like she's gross. Yeah. Like he often, like when she would get close to him, like he would describe, like he would tart was used. Like tart was used. Tart. Like musty was used. Like those words, very disgusting language was used to describe her. Yeah. Like grease. Like she was always described very gross. And then when she would get angry, it was like, it's scary. It's scary because you're yelling. It's scary because you're yelling. But also like, oh my God, spit is coming out of your mouth. Like he would talk about those things. He'd be like, you could see like spit pooling at the corners of her mouth. Like, and I guess I don't have an answer to this question, but I put it in here thinking that I would have eventually. Who's really in control? The captive or the captor? And I still don't have an answer to that question. I would like to think that it was majority Annie, but I really honestly truly don't think Annie would have ever fully killed Paul. There were multiple times that she could have. Even when he got out of his room, that would have been prime time. Okay, you're doing too much and like you're a liability. I have to get rid of you, right? But she still chose to break his legs and force him to write a book rather than just kill him and, live with the Misery series as it is now. I ask anyone who's watching this to answer these 3 questions in the comments because I'd really like to hear you guys' opinions about this. So the first question I have is there a line? Is there a thin line between devotion and domination? Or do they go hand in hand together? And then, if so, for either or, why, right? My second question is the gender roles being reversed. Annie being the captor and Paul being the captee. What does that reveal about audience discomfort? What do you think it reveals? And then my last question, who was really in control? Annie or Paul? Because I don't know. What a good motherfucking movie. We all go a little stir crazy now and then. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And here's the Misery. Yeah, but if you guys don't mind, you really need to get out of here. Annie's probably gonna be back from the store any minute now, and
I'm not supposed to have people in my room. So. You gotta go. You gotta go.
No, he's not here. I don't know where he is. He never tells me anything anymore. He's probably out having an affair somewhere. Wait a minute. He's coming in now. It's Jim Taylor. He wants to know who you're having an affair with.